Along with John Parkinson and John Boswell, we took over the Participatory and Deliberative Democracy Specialist Group in the middle of the summer. We took over from Stephen Ellsberg and Ian O'Flynn, and we've done a great job. One of the things we wanted to do was start experimenting with new ways of reaching out to our members and reaching out to other potentially interested audiences. So I'll just briefly run through what we did, how it went, what lessons we learned, and where we might go with this next. So what we did was ran an online discussion. We ran an online discussion on the 11th of September as a sort of a pilot project to experiment with new ways of kind of using the expertise of our members to engage with contemporary issues and to engage with wider audiences like policymakers, journalists, civil society organizations, even members of the public, if they're interested. And what we did was use the Google Hangout platform, which is, this is a picture of it. We used the Google Hangout platform because it's accessible, it's free, it allows a group discussion, sort of along the lines of a late night panel TV debate, right? So those pictures along the bottom are the other people who are taking part in the event, and what the director of the event can do is kind of switch from person to person as they're talking, and as a viewer you can watch whoever you want to watch, or you can have them up as multiple sort of talking heads, like on a news panel. And people can ask questions or interact on the platform itself. So those are some of the features of that platform. It's also quite nice because you can then just save it as a YouTube film. It makes it automatically into a YouTube film, and you can embed that in your website, which is what we've done, or you can just link to it and have it on your sort of YouTube channel. So we chose the topic of the Scottish referendum just because it was there and it was a big issue. And we focused sort of not on the kind of horse race politics, but on the quality of public deliberation, the quality of debate. And we had a nice range of participants. I mean, we had Ali Stoddart from Community Engagement at the Democratic Society in Scotland, and Paul Kearney, Professor of Politics at Stirling, Willie O'Sullivan from the Electoral Reform Society of Scotland, and Andrew O'Sullivan from Edinburgh University, and Penny Taylor, who's a journalist and former Scottish NHS executive member. So that's basically what we did. How did it go? Well, the discussion went pretty well, we thought. It ran for an hour. Willie O'Sullivan couldn't get his software to work, so he couldn't actually take part. This is a lesson to be learned. But John Parkinson was the sort of MC? No, there's a word. The facilitator, leader of the discussion, mediator. He was the leader of the discussion, and John Boswell was the director, as though it were a sort of BBC 4 late night panel discussion. He's the director, switching people onto the main camera, and I was just a plant in the audience asking questions to make it look like there was a buzz to do with the event. We had quite a small number of live viewers. It got up to the late teens at one point. This was at lunchtime on the 11th.
I was one of them.
You were one of them. Fantastic. Excellent. Well done. Great job. So relatively small, but okay, that's another thing I should say about the platform as well, is that it's, again, a bit like a TV show that you're making. It runs live. So, we were tweeting it, we were trying to reach out to members and PSA people, various people, and pick a time where people in various countries could sort of watch. But the idea is that you can tune in for an hour and you can see this. But being able to post it online, being able to post it on YouTube as a video, we've actually had 180 views on the YouTube channel so far, which is a little more surprising. And that's a permanent fixture, that just sits there. And so people can go back to that, and evidently they do. So lessons learned. Technical lessons. It needs quite a lot of preparation. So John Boswell was the one in our group who was tasked with, who was sort of organising this and getting in touch with the people, because we had to, everybody who'd agreed to participate, we were getting in touch with them beforehand to make sure they had the right sort of hardware, make sure they had the right software. They have to join Google Plus if they don't already belong. So it's free, but you do have to join. Some people don't like that. And you have to make sure that everything's up to speed. Like you can't run through this effectively on a smartphone, for example. You need a bit more processing power. Otherwise, it just stutters and judders, and it's so you need a fast internet connection. Those kinds of things. There are a few small hiccups with getting live questions into the participants. So a few things we need to work on there. One thing that worked really well was having a separate moderator and a separate director, because that would have been a nightmare to do both things. You could in principle do that, but it's just really nice having one person who concentrates on discussion, another person who concentrates on switching the cameras. So those are some technical lessons. Then there were some sort of organizational, I suppose, things that we learned. We need to do more to whip up an audience. Like it's one of the advantages of this sort of platform is that it's relatively low entry for everything. You don't have to travel to a conference. You just have to sort of tune in at a particular point. But still, finding people, getting it advertised, getting it out is quite difficult. So we were doing targeted tweeting and so on, tweeting during the event. Another also organizational problem is getting people to participate, like actually finding people who will give the time. And again, it's a relatively low-cost, low-impact sort of event. It's easier to get a busy senior person's 1 hour at Tuesday lunchtime than it is to get them to travel to a conference or a workshop. But it's still a little bit tricky, coordinating schedules and fixing up all of that sort of stuff. So, it's not entirely cost-free in terms of the time and effort. And then I guess the final thing I want to talk about, and what I'd love some feedback on actually, is where we go next with this. What's the best use of this platform? Because what we did here was more or less opportunistic. It's just because the Scottish referendum was there and it was a big issue, and we thought we'd like to pilot this and try it out and see how it works and get used to it. And what we were essentially doing was giving expert perspectives on a current issue and directing it at academic and non-academic audiences. Other sorts of things that we could do with this platform, that we want to do, we want to experiment with, are more sort of research-led discussions. So for example, discussions among academics, for an audience of academics on a particular topic, maybe a particular piece of work. It would involve a lot less commitment on people's parts than a conference or a workshop, but it wouldn't substitute for it, but it's the sort of thing that might lead to it or might be preparatory or something. So for example, there's a project I'm working on at the moment on online public discourse and the effects of anonymity on online commenting. So we've got this data set of 42 million comments on the Huffington Post, either side of a change in the anonymity requirements. And so you can then do a lot of analysis, which we've done. We found some things that you'd expect on the other side, across the change, a few things you wouldn't expect. But what we're thinking of doing then is having, using this platform so that we can meet up, so we can talk to people, so we can talk about the potential of using big data and analyzing online discourse. So we can talk about, maybe more broadly, about what we might do as next steps in research on this, what might be of value, that's something that we're planning for sort of early next year, sort of March, April-ish. But again, we're not quite sure what this platform could work best to do. It can obviously do a range of things, but it's something we want to experiment with, and it's something we would maybe encourage other people to try out as well. Yeah, I mean, again, one of the advantages of using this kind of platform, we think, is that we can engage scholars from overseas pretty easily. We can publicize work in progress to a wider audience potentially, generate further. I mean, one of the things I'd quite like to see if we can do this is to say generate further research questions, generate further sorts of things. So instead of jumping straight in with a workshop, full workshop or a full conference session, we can actually have discussions with the source. We can get so-and-so in America and so-and-so over here and so-and-so in Germany, and we can sort of talk in a room, so to speak, about the work in progress, and then think about what we might best do with this. What should we do? Should we maybe try and run a workshop? Should we link up with this Internet and Democracy group? Should we try this ECPR? Whatever. So we can do all of this. So anyway, that's just to say we experimented with this thing. That's how it went. And I'd love to hear some ideas about what we might best do with this. And of course, any questions?